Hello, and I'm Jeremy. Welcome to Dartboard Minis. Haven't done one in a while, but whatever. This weekend we're not recording it. Dartboard Cinema. We're waiting until Ashley's going to OhioCon, so and we don't want to do a two-person episode, so we're just going to wait until Tuesday to record. So, yeah. So, as some of you know, I am planning a David Lynch month. We're going to be covering Eraserhead, Lost Highway, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive. So, I figured I would, give you a little bit of something, let you know where, kind of give you like a preview of it in a way. So I decided to rewatch David Lynch's Elephant Man. Now, Elephant Man is a very interesting film in his filmography because he had made Eraserhead, which is one of the greatest films of all time, and Mel Brooks, from what I gather, Mel Brooks was a big fan of that, and tapped David Lynch to direct this film, Elephant Man, and the script was already written, everything. So, Elephant Man. And what's really great about Elephant Man, it's one of his most straightforward films, but it still has lots of surreal dream stuff in it. It still has a lot of David Lynch's patented surrealism, and that stuff is really interesting. And from what I've also read, producers or the studios was worried about that kind of stuff. They're like, "Oh, people won't get it. David Lynch just makes confusing movies." There was all that. I don't even know what that was, but anyway. So there was all that behind the scenes. And Mel Brooks was just basically like, "Well, fuck you. We're gonna do it anyway, because it's good." And, yeah. So, yeah, the background on this film is really interesting, and where this led to, because David Lynch got nominated for all these Academy Awards, it led to Dune. And we all know how that turned out. David Lynch's Dune. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm ambivalent towards it. I think I would have loved to see have seen David Lynch's movie. That I'm convinced that's not David Lynch's movie, because it isn't, because he didn't have final cut. It was a studio film. And what was interesting about that is, because of his poor experience, like he went from making this truly creative part of him with Eraserhead, then with Elephant Man he kind of treaded upward, and then Dune was going to be the movie that made him the big star director, and it was a disaster. And because of that, he went back to expressing his own creative thing. And with that, we got Blue Velvet. And then we got Wild at Heart, and Twin Peaks, and Fire Walk with Me, and Lost Highway, and Mulholland Drive, which is, like I said, that is one of the greatest films of all time, because it is. It's probably the greatest surreal film ever made. The only one that I can think of that comes close is Eraserhead, or Gozu, or The Holy Mountain. I'm alone on that one on Dartboard. I haven't seen enough Buñuel or Fellini to say. I'm sure. So I'm sure they're up there. I've seen La Strada in terms of Fellini, and that's more conventional. And I've seen. I don't know how to pronounce the title, but it's the Buñuel. It's the Buñuel that everyone knows, with the slitting of the eyeball. That was great. that was very, very good, and I can definitely tell that Buñuel had a huge influence on Lynch. But so yeah. So what Elephant Man represents in his filmography is kind of him inching closer to what became his mainstream film, which is Dune. And what Dune represents is his attempt at that, and then him retreating back into expressing his own unique vision. And I think that's really what's interesting about David Lynch. Like, his trajectory was going up, and then he just went back to making his own stuff. And because of that, he got, like, Best Director nominations and Best Picture nominations for Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet. And it just goes to show that his own unique vision is something that people are interested in and enjoy. Now, Elephant Man. I've been blabbering about all that stuff. Elephant Man's a really great movie, though. John Hurt is heartbreaking in his performance, and Anthony Hopkins is equally great in this film. The scene, it's a movie that just guts you. Like, the character, his name is escaping me, but John Hurt's character in this film, the Elephant Man, it's just such a tragic and relatable character. And the scene where he meets Anthony Hopkins' wife is one of the most, like, gut-punching scenes. Like, it's one of those scenes that it consistently makes me almost, like, shed a tear. Like, it's really powerful stuff. The film has lots of typical, Lynch surrealism and some of Lynch's bizarre humor. But it's more straightforward than the more Lynchy stuff, I guess. But it still has what we've come to expect from him. It's just not as ubiquitous. The story is straightforward. It isn't, like, hidden. And I've seen pretty much all of his films. I haven't seen Straight Story. I haven't seen Wild at Heart. I haven't seen Fire Walk with Me. And I haven't seen Inland Empire. So I need to watch 4 more, I think. But I've loved all of his films for different reasons. Dune being my least favorite, but whatever. But Elephant Man, it's just a solid story. It's David Lynch telling a very compassionate, compelling story about a really interesting and tragic figure. The scenes where, he's starting to get a little confident. He's putting on the suit and doing his hair, and he's looking in the mirror, and then Lynch just comes in and punches you in the gut again when all those people come in and start mocking him and calling him the Elephant Man, and showing his reflection in the mirror, and it's just tragic stuff. It really is. It's beautifully shot, of course. David Lynch movie. It's gonna be really well shot. It's a touching movie. It's one of his best. Well, it's tough to rate. It's tough to rate Lynch films because they're all great in drastically different ways. But I would say, for someone getting into Lynch, this is a good starting point because it has some of his surrealism, but it isn't as like dense and opaque, or not opaque's the wrong word, but it isn't as dense with the surrealism. It has all of his elements, but it's kind of more conventional. It's more conventional, so it's more straightforward, so it's more palatable for someone who isn't as used to David Lynch and his style. So Elephant Man, I think it's a great movie. It's streaming on Netflix in America. I would highly recommend The Elephant Man, especially if you're wanting to get into David Lynch and you're not sure. I would say Elephant Man's a good place to start. And then after that, I don't know, Eraserhead, probably. The first one I saw was Lost Highway, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Because the first half is some of the most terrifying filmmaking I've ever seen. And then the second half, well, the stuff with, like, Mr. Eddie, like, that, it's like, this is kind of becoming a comedy now? Like, Lynch is really great at, like, jumping from tone to tone. And, but then I saw Mulholland Drive, and I was like, this guy is a genius. So, yeah. Really looking forward to David Lynch month. And, you know, I want you guys to talk to us. You know, comment on this video, comment on our links and stuff. I want to hear about what you guys think of David Lynch, and yeah. So, yep, stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. And also, stay tuned for the Cutting Room Movie Podcast. They're coming back this Monday with a review of Blue Ruin, which, as some of you know, was on my top favorite list of last year. So, yeah, guys. Peace. Oh, wait, that's not the peace. That's the peace sign. Oh, that's like finger... You see, I try to do something funny and it just comes across as awkward. I suck! Bye.